TJ, Chicago. You're on the Wilkow Majority. Hello.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I just think the government has an appropriate role in society, and there's no reason for conservatives to be so hostile. I mean, my family was all Republican.
Hold on. I just want to stop you for a second. First of all,
Sure.
liberals were pretty hostile to government under George Bush. Am I correct?
You are correct.
As far as this air fingers quote role in our society, just tell me where I can find these things in the Constitution. For the federal government. You, with your state government in Illinois and your city government in Chicago are free to do whatever you want that you're not forbidden from doing based on the 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution. But this role for government to play before government enforces law and collects taxes and arrests those that break that supposed law, just tell me where I can see these laws that you speak of.
I'm not talking about laws. I'm talking about initiatives to make society
But where do they get the power for these initiatives?
Through the federal government.
But where does the federal government get this power from?
From the people of the United States?
No, the federal government gets its power from the Constitution. Thomas Paine was 100% right in common sense that the government's a function of the Constitution, not the other way around.
Right, but the Constitution is the expression of the will of the American people, right?
No.
Well, then whose will does it express?
It is the Republican form of government. We have a democratic process that allows us by 51% majority to select our leaders who are then limited in their role in our lives through the Republican form of government laid out in construct in the United States Constitution. The Constitution doesn't bend to the will of modernity or 51% or a referendum. The only way to make the Constitution change to the will of the people is for 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate, and 2/3 of the state. Everything else is a constitutional violation.
Right, sure, but there are a lot of things that the government can do that don't involve changing the law.
Like what?
Like encouraging people to be educated. Take that one.
Encouraging it. Look, I could care less what people encourage to do. It's when they say the government's going to make you do it. The government doesn't make suggestions, sir. It's like saying that Social Security is the government suggesting how you plan for your retirement. No, it's the government confiscating your money and putting it into a government program.
Sure, but government can do a lot of things where it makes opportunities available to people.
How do they do that and keep it in the framework of the Constitution?
I can't tell you exactly how the constitutional function of it goes, but, I mean, the government has a vested interest in making sure that as many Americans are as smart as they possibly can be.
Where does it say that in the Constitution?
No, it doesn't say that in the Constitution. Because that would have to do with...
But what you're missing the point is nobody's saying government doesn't have a role. The federal government doesn't have a role. You have a State Department of Education in Illinois, do you not?
I assume we do.
You do. Do you have a University of Chicago?
We do.
So between those two state and local facilities and layers of government, you are free to institute whatever policy you wish to make the people of Illinois or the residents of the city of Chicago, air fingers quote, more educated. That's what the 10th Amendment provides you. It limits the federal government and empowers your state and local government. The problem is the federal government has usurped that authority from the cities like Chicago and the states like Illinois and decided the central plan from Washington.
I understand what you're saying, but I would say that the United States actually needs to have a more powerful, more centralized federal government precisely because it's increasingly competitive against governments that are absolutely centralized, and they're going to be able to prioritize their needs with a much greater degree of
At what expense, sir? It's kind of like when liberal Democrats look at China and say, we're fighting over high-speed rail there. They just build it. Yeah? And how much personal freedom does the average Chinese citizen have?
Exactly, and that's why we ought to have a federal government so we can fight off the communist Chinese and beat them.
Okay, we could already do that. Thank you very much for the call. The point he's missing is when the federal government oversteps its bounds, it has to eat away at liberty to do so. So to say that the Chinese are so good at building high-speed rail, they do it at the expense of their citizens. 1-866-95-PATRIOT. And again, it's the old argument. If you don't want the federal government doing it, you don't want it getting done. That's not true. I'll get the rest of the calls next. We're right, they're wrong. That's the end of the story. The arguments cannot be broken. I want you to try. I'll give you all the opportunities. 1-866-95-PATRIOT, 957-2874. Twitter.com, Wilkow Majority, WilkowMajority.com. Sirius XM Patriot.